So let's just begin. Good afternoon, I'm Cleo Aquino and welcome to the Southside Builders Association Wednesday Lunch Bites, where we talk about trends and insights in the real estate field. Today we are so excited. We have Nasutsa Mabwa. She is the president of ServiceMaster Restoration by Simons. It is a certified emergency disaster restoration company. And also Kevin Cawley. He is the national account representative for the Cost Segregation Services Incorporated, tax compliance while saving and maximizing profits. So we are always opening up business here. I'd also like to introduce my co-hosts, SBA board members Lori Wyatt from Real Estate Growth Partners, Stan Bochnowski, Lakeside Bank, Bob Dickinson, Greater Illinois Title. A huge thank you goes out to Jerry Brown from Siegel and Callahan and Michael Hobbs from Peru Appraisal and Consultancy for securing our featured guest speakers for today. And also Andy Skolnick, he is the board president of the Southside Builders Association. During the presentation, we trust that our colleagues will continue to mute themselves. Please use the chat box for questions and comments. Jerry, can you please lead us to our discussion today?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Nasutsa, for presenting to us today. I must say, when COVID first happened, I thought of you and your company. I didn't imagine it would be applied to dealing with the COVID shutdown and all the concerns. So a lot of people are eager to hear what you have to say. So I guess I'd like to start by asking, have you ever had to do anything like this kind of, COVID disinfections disinfections like this prior to the COVID outbreak?
Hi, Jerry. That's a really good question. We're a emergency disaster restoration company. So before COVID-19 began in March, we already use a lot of cleaning solutions and chemical solutions for cleaning up biohazard and hazmat, industrial waste, Category 3 sewer backup. So we're familiar with cleaning biohazard matter. And COVID-19 is really approached the same way when you're using a viricide or disinfectant. So our company already had all of the right PPE and equipment, everything we needed to do to pivot into cleaning COVID-19, cleaning and disinfections quickly. It wasn't a huge shift for us because we already do a lot of that type of work for a different purpose, but in effect, it's the same thing.
So now that we're approaching stage 4 of reopening, what does that mean in terms of the obligations of a building owner or a landlord or a business owner in terms of reducing the risk of COVID? What are they supposed to be doing?
So for building owners, it's a little different than residences, but not much. To date, we've done hundreds and hundreds of cleanings. We pretty much started April 1st. March was closed. We closed down for several weeks. We were deemed essential, and then we got back in there and were able to organize ourselves and keep the staff working, which not all companies have been able to do, right? It's been hard. But in any case, we recommend that going now into phase 4, and some of my slides go through this, but I can just talk through it, it's fine. The key thing for COVID-19 cleaning, disinfection, and re-entry and preventative cleaning is basically the frequency and the amount of cleaning that commercial property owners are doing. So everybody pretty much already had a janitorial service in place before the pandemic. What they were doing was the same thing every night, but not enough. So now there has to be more attention to areas that are high-touch areas, like light switches, doorknobs, chair arms, telephones, anything that's touched frequently has to be cleaned every single day. That's what most business owners are trying to do, and that's what's recommended in the guidelines. Also, what they're cleaning with has to be a cleaning solution, a disinfectant that's approved by the EPA on their list N. There's 35 chemical solutions that are approved to remediate or reduce the risk of COVID-19 spreading. And that's what janitorial companies are supposed to be using. We're not a janitorial company, but we have been doing large cleanings during this time period. The day-to-day cleaners are going to have to get on track, and they have been pretty quickly to provide those services to commercial property owners.
So what's the range of buildings you provided this service to? I mean, apartment buildings, stores,
Sure.
offices. What's the range of properties you've serviced?
So we have been doing residences as small as 1,000 square feet, and to date, the largest has been 800,000 square feet. Distribution centers in the suburbs, factories, metal plating companies, those places, some of them had positive cases, so we had to come in and disinfect for them quickly. So we've done a huge range of those types of services.
So once you've performed your service, is it a situation where the owner can then clean them by themselves, or do you have to come back and repeat the service periodically?
So everybody asks, on the phone to the staff, is there a silver bullet? And there isn't. The only thing we can do until there's an immunization for this virus is to clean frequently and deeply and in those high touch areas. We use fogging, electrostatic fogging spraying machines, which fog and spray the disinfectant into the air and onto surfaces. And then we also hand wipe. But the dirt has to be cleaned off of surfaces before you can fog and spray. There is no way to remove it. If someone comes back in and is tested positive, you have to clean again. We can get any business to a baseline level, a thorough deep cleaning, and then if they continue forward on a daily basis, they should be good to go. And that's what we recommend. However, like I said, people who are not feeling well should not be coming into work. Social distancing has to be continued. And people also have to make sure they are wearing face coverings and also spacing themselves out and continue to hand wash or use hand sanitizer, hand washing frequently or hand sanitizing. These are all those features, those pieces that we've been doing for 4 months. Some people are having fatigue from this, but until there is a solution, an immunization, we have to keep up with that, especially in commercial settings and commuting on trains and buses, going to airports, things of that nature.
So does it depend on the nature of the facility in terms of how often you need to go there and redo the sanitization?
We have been called back in by several companies to do sanitation after because they got another positive case after we came in and did the work. So we've had to do repetitive visits. But I would say by far, most commercial property owners and managers have been able to put in place very good daily cleaning programs by their janitorial people, or even like the receptionist or whoever's there, or having their own people who are working now from the office on staggered schedules, cleaning more frequently. And so everyone's just getting creative because we all have to do this. We all have to clean more frequently moving forward, more heavily than we were before. And some of these slides talk about the difference between cleaning and disinfection. Cleaning is great. It removes the germs on the surfaces, but to clean and kill and disinfect a virus, you would need a proper chemical solution that is known to do that. And you have to use it correctly, and you have to let it dwell on the surface for the correct amount of time. The cleaning solutions that we use have to sit on the surface from 7 to 10 minutes to kill everything that's there. And then we offer a certificate of disinfection to our customers. Here are some of the pictures of our staff cleaning. The one in the top right corner is a factory. Down where the file cabinets are is an office. We've done pretty much any type of setting you could think of. Animal hospitals, legal offices, hair salons, retail shops that are reopening, large factories, like I said, big range of places. So there's a lot involved to COVID cleaning and disinfection, but there is a process, and there are now some companies that are coming out saying they can do this, and they're not certified. And we are certified by the IICRC, which is our industry standard. And our staff are wearing PPE. They're wearing Tyvek suits. They're using respirators. They're double gloving. We've had nobody sick at the company. Nobody's been ill. We're extremely careful. And some companies are now jumping on the bandwagon, and it scares me because I don't really know what they're offering those clients. Cheaper doesn't mean better.
Certainly not in this context, certainly.
Anyways, I hope that answers your question, Jerry.
No, it does. So are there any particular challenges that are unique to like disinfecting an apartment building as compared to a retail store? Or
yeah, I would for sure. We have found that commercial property managers and owners are much better at working on scheduling their staff and understanding that we need to come in to do our work and that they need to vent the air after. There has to be a vented air exchange after we do the disinfection process, which means you have to open doors and windows or run with the building engineer the HVAC system through to change the air. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
it does.
after we do it, you don't want to sit in a closed space breathing disinfectant right after we did our services, right? That's not good for anybody's respiratory system. So commercial building owners understand that we have to get the staff out. We're going to come in, ServiceMaster by Simons, do the disinfection and cleaning, and then they can go in the next day or later that evening, for example, if they have 3 shift schedules like at a factory, or if they have 2 shifts, or if they're working 8 to 6, we can come before hours or after hours. Residential customers are always home, right? So some of them have been sick. We've met so many people who have lost loved ones through this pandemic. We're not known as the first line of defense or the people on the front lines, but we are, because we're not in hospitals, but we're dealing with the residential component of this pandemic. People are telling us that their business partners have died, their mother, their father, their aunt, their uncle, their son. It's horrific. And we're coming in and disinfecting those homes after they come home from the hospital. And so we have to explain to them, you need to leave and you need to cross vent and change the air out before you come back in, especially if you have somebody who's elderly, who's just rehabilitated from the hospital. They can't come back in right away. That's sometimes a problem, but for commercial, it has not been.
Actually, in the building where I work, my managing partner of my firm raised an issue. We were planning to have a meeting with a number of people, and the concern was doing an entirely indoor large meeting, the possibility of contracting the virus through the HVAC system. What, if anything, can be done to reduce that risk? I mean, if you have lots of people in a enclosed space, is there anything that can be done to the system that minimizes that risk, or is that just something we're stuck with?
From what I can tell and what we've heard in our ServiceMaster corporate meetings and trainings, because we have weekly meetings as franchise owners, is that the people who manage those really complicated building systems in high rises, the building engineers who manage those systems, which are pretty technical when you get to a 20+ story building, they're going to have to be really savvy at handling the fresh air exchange. It's supposed to be done on a schedule, but we're finding that a lot of buildings don't do this. And if they don't do this, especially after a large group is gathered during this period of time where we still don't have an immunization, that's going to cause problems. Changing air filters as frequently is great, but some of these building systems for HVAC are huge, huge systems. And they have to bring in fresh air along with the air filter to change the air and clean the air. So duct cleaning companies, which we are not, are going to be busy. And then those building engineers who are trained to manage those HVAC systems will have to up their processing of changing the air weekly in office buildings.
So what can you describe the process when you go in and do a cleaning? I mean, how large a team will you send in? How long does it take? What are the steps of the process?
Yes, so we decide by talking to the customer how large of a team we need to bring in. We can bring in anywhere from 2 people if it's a really tiny place, and one person can just be using the fogging spraying machine, the other person can be hand wiping. A tiny little place, maybe like 900 square feet. Or if it's a huge factory or a huge office building or many floors of offices, then you need at least 6 to 10 people. So those teams are working in units of 2, and then they do the job in that fashion. So everybody has their tasks of either hand wiping with the disinfectant or using the fogging spraying machines. We have handheld ones. We also have backpack electrostatic fogging and spraying machines. And we're able to get, usually the job's always done in one day, no matter how large it is. We just bring more people if it's larger. So we scale up, we're agile, and it's been fine to date.
So how many people are in your company? How large a staff or group of workers do you have working for you?
Right now we have 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see we have some questions in the chat. Let me make sure we get those asked.
What do we have? I don't see the questions.
I'll ask.
Okay.
What is the current thinking about transmission from surfaces versus airborne?
Okay, so we have gone to a lot of weekly trainings as franchise owners about different topics related to cleaning and disinfection and COVID-19. That's a good question. What we're hearing, again, is what we've heard from the beginning, is that C19 is really transmitted by droplets in the air, by person-to-person contact. And so surfaces can have the virus on the surface, but it wouldn't be living for more than a number of hours. So it seems like the transmission rates that the scientists have found are more aggressive from the droplets than on hard surfaces. It doesn't mean you don't need to clean hard surfaces, but after a certain number of hours, the virus will die on a surface. Where in the air to a person along with wind flow and drag, that's an increased risk for transmission. So the best thing to do is just to be safe than sorry, and to clean surfaces more frequently, especially the high touch areas I mentioned.
Another question, does ServiceMaster work with outside vendors to complement their services?
Outside vendors like a janitorial service or company, or what outside? I don't really understand.
I guess in this, security.
We haven't, but we can. I mean, right now we're interfacing with a lot of office managers and property managers and building owners to do our work. We work with whoever we need to provide services, but if we needed to work with security services, we would, yes, for sure. We have high levels of insurance as required by ServiceMaster Corporate, and we're licensed and bonded, and we're a legitimate professional company.
And what's your service territory? Is it greater metropolitan Chicago area?
Sure. We have 6 licenses, so we cover all of Chicago Metro, Oak Park River Forest, and all of the North Shore, up to the Wisconsin border.
And what's the turnaround time for getting a cleaning from making the initial call to you?
I get that asked. That's one I get asked all the time on the phones too. And it's busy, so I've been helping out on phones a lot for the staff here. We are able to squeeze everybody in usually every week. The worst we've had to do is put off someone to the next day, like in the evening or the day after, but we've always been able to accommodate everybody. Like I mentioned, we are agile and we staff up or staff down, and we've gone over, late at night or in the morning, and we've been able to provide services as the customer needs. We've gone even to Indiana a few times, right over the border, to help companies, and on the weekends we've done some work too to help residences. We basically go wherever we're needed. We are, a service provider, and it's all about our customers. So we have to get out to the field to provide those services.
Why don't we open it up for questions from the floor? Our president, Andy. Andy, do you have a question?
I do. I'm curious from the business standpoint. Are you finding this more, less profitable than what you anticipated? Are you finding that this is a 6-month thing that you'll be doing? Why don't you talk to us a little bit about the business itself?
Okay, well, we provide water and fire damage restoration and mold remediation and some post-construction cleanup, and that's what we've been doing for nearly 7 years since we opened. This specific type of cleaning for COVID-19, the cleaning and disinfection, seems like it's going to be around for a while. We started April 1st, like I mentioned, when I started speaking to the group, and it has not really gone down since then. Now, if there is a cure, an immunization found sooner, we probably are going to see a dip and a decrease in requests for this type of service. I do know that janitorial companies are going to have more work to do, which we are not. But if people do continue to have positive cases, they've been calling to get disinfected. We are seeing profits. Our profits are definitely up for May and June, year over year. I can tell you that.
So from your perspective, it's a sustainable business.
It's sustainable as long as the customer needs the service. If there's an immunization and people feel like they can just clean themselves, it may not be. But we do so many other service offerings that we would just continue doing what we've always done, which is water and fire damage and mold remediation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I think we've gone through your PowerPoint, and I think we've answered all the questions that I have.
Great.
I have a question.
Oh, my.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I might, maybe I missed it. Does the majority, how does the majority of your business come? Does it come via insurance companies or just
No.
calling ServiceMaster?
I have not had any insurance requests since April 1st. It's all via Google.
Interesting. So
And all the company owners, the building engineers, whoever's facility managers, they're going on. We put our page up for COVID services in the end of March. We were the first to do it. And then people just search us and they just see us there on the first page and they call us. So they call us by Google.
So when COVID disappears, hopefully someday, and you're—
Yeah, I hope so too.
I hope so too. You're doing things outside of COVID. Is there, again, will that be through Google, or I know you're in the restoration business, so do you do insurance work at all, or is it just—
We do insurance work every day. That's the big kind of, meat and potatoes of our company. We get referrals from corporate. We get referrals from insurance adjusters. We deal with all the main big insurance carriers. We do large loss claims, small claims. We do commercial, we do residential. That's just constant. This is just this discussion today. This specific service line is on top of what we already do.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you for answering.
Thank you. Sure.
Any other questions? So I guess at this, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I feel like I should start cleaning my countertops after all this great conversation.
More frequently. Remember, frequency.
Frequency. That's right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great information. Michael, could you do us a favor and introduce Kevin here?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So Kevin Colley is with CSSI. It's Cost Segregation Services. It's someone who's owned a lot of buildings. I'd come across cost segregation a while ago. For those of you that studied accounting at any point in your life, you've actually dealt with this and the concept of depreciation. What most people are not aware of, and for a long time I wasn't either, despite a significant portfolio of buildings, is that my accountant would handle my taxes. They'd tell me what my taxes were and what depreciation benefit I had. But I wasn't familiar with the notion of accelerated depreciation as it related to providing a much bigger, in this case, tax shelter for the properties that I own because of the asset values. And because of the CARES Act, and that's why this was timely, that's why I suggested Kevin as a topic, an expert for us, is that the CARES Act has a provision right now that you can potentially receive unlimited tax refunds based on accelerated depreciation of your properties only until September. So this is one of those, it's not like, hey, guess what? It's a great example and it'll go on forever. Cost segregation has always been around, but the opportunity to receive an unlimited and immediate tax refund is only until basically the end of this quarter. So that's why I wanted to have Kevin join us and share what is cost segregation. How does it benefit property owners? Whether you've got one investment property or you have a massive portfolio, huge opportunities. Kevin, if you want to jump in, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to do the share screen. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, we're good.
Sir.
Cool. I'll share the screen. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to leave this open. I might skip a slide or two, so I'm going to leave it open. But yes, the CARES Act, the timing couldn't be better, so thank you, Mike Hobbs. And he's correct. I've had clients receive cash refunds, $1.7 million, $600,000, just on the, we call it cash that was hidden in the walls. They didn't even know it's there. But before I get into accelerated depreciation, I'd like to talk about, and I know this is a sophisticated group, but I'd like to talk about straight line depreciation, okay? This is, we call it depreciation 101. It automatically happens to you when you buy a property. So unless you have a savvy, proactive accountant, or you know someone like myself who's out there actively, proactively promoting this, you may not know about it. So you're going to be victim to straight line depreciation. And so the way I like to explain it is, let's say I bought one of Michael Hobbs' properties after we minus land value for $1 million. Well, the IRS is going to go, Kevin Cawley now needs a depreciation schedule. Well, how do they come up with it? They look at the asset class and divide it by the purchase price. And then whatever that number is, you get. And from year 39, if it's, go ahead.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
I'm not the brightest one in the room, but you're going way faster than what I can handle.
Sure, yeah, I'm sorry about that. And you know what, too, is this, are you, Andy, the one driving? My apologies.
Yeah, he's driving.
I am, and I promise not to have an accident.
Oh, good, yeah. So I'm going over a very simple,
Andy.
a very simple picture. So you know what? I apologize. I didn't take into consideration your driving. But here, we'll start, and I will go slower, and I'll get to it. I'll make sure you get it. So if I buy a property, let's just say, for example, for Michael Hobbs, who introduced me, and it's $1 million purchase for me, okay? So I bought $1 million building for Michael Hobbs. I have to have the building go on a depreciation schedule. This is just IRS law 101. So what the IRS says is commercial buildings, the structural of a commercial building depreciates over 39 years, and residential property depreciates over 27 and a half. Why they pick those numbers, they're arbitrary. No one knows, or at least the tax professionals I've asked have no idea. Well, if I bought a commercial property, which depreciates over 39 years for $1 million from Michael Hobbs, they're going to go, we got to get Kevin a depreciation schedule. So they just take this purchase price, $1 million, divided by the asset class, 39, and that would give me a write-off standardized from year 1 to year 39 of $25,600. Okay. A write-off is only as good as your tax rate. So if I was in the highest tax bracket, 37% for federal, take the write-off times my tax rate, and that would net me $94.72. So every year when income tax is owed, automatically $94.72 gets reduced off the top. That would be from year 1 to year 39, or until whenever I sold the property. Okay, the reason we call this lazy man's depreciation is, number one, it happens automatically. But number two, the accountant simply taking every part, piece, component, and building system that it takes to make a building, and they're dividing that total cost by 39. That's what they're doing. Simple as that. So what is cost segregation? It's simply a way to segregate every part, piece, component, and building system that won't last 39 years. And we'll put them on their correct depreciation schedules, which would be 5, 7, or 15 years. Just for an example, especially for you, Andy, driving, if you're a hotel owner, a hotel is a commercial property, so it depreciates over 39 years. If I had $100,000 of carpeting in my hotel, I could divide that by 39 and take that standardized write-off from year 1 to 39. Or I could divide it by 5. So carpeting's a 5-year asset class, and get a 20 grand write-off for the next 5 years. So that's a small example. For those of you who could see it, it's much easier. I'll go into 5 and 7 year property. But what does that do? It really leverages the time value of money. So now instead of taking incremental write-off over 39 years, you get much bigger write-offs in the earlier years of ownership. And the time value of money really is just about money today is worth more down the line, right? Everyone with me so far?
Yeah, even me.
All right, great. So, Andy, what I'm showing now, I'm showing some examples of 5 and 7 year property. So, here's a picture of a dental office or a medical office. Instead of looking at the ceiling tiles and the cabinetry and the doors and some of the FF&E, so fixtures and furniture, and just saying, hey, divide all that by 39, we're going to look at the interior doors, put them on a 5-year schedule. It may not seem like a big write-off, but if you have $10,000 of interior doors,
Yeah.
why space that out over 39 years? Let's divide it by 5, and we'll take it by 5. You'll see here special electrical, plumbing, mechanicals. For medical offices, they always have specialty plumbing for anesthesia, etc. Carpet, flooring, decorative moldings. You'll see here most commercial buildings, there's always communications cables for IT, window treatments, security camera, security lighting. That's just a small sampling of 5- and 7-year property. Some 15-year property, we call it landscaping or hardscaping. So it's usually paving, so parking lots, fencing, site utilities, signage, sidewalks, etc. And then to really drive the point home, here's another small sampling. And I like to show this page just to show how granular we're going. Here we're looking at vinyl tile flooring, gazebos, patio concrete, just jumping all over, paging systems, surveillance systems. These are all things that an accountant doesn't go to school for, therefore he'll miss these deductions. So if any of you are thinking, don't CPAs do this already? No. 90% of my firm's entire business comes from tax professionals, okay? It's very specialized. If someone ever did a cost seg on their own and got audited, the agent would simply ask, hey, Mr. Jones, what do you know about the application and deterioration of these FRP wall panels? You didn't go to school for that. So this is an engineered tax service. My firm has 16 full-time engineers on staff to break out a building, segregate all these components. I wanted to show some examples, and then I'll jump into this CARES Act. So here's how cost seg would typically work. These are real clients of mine. Here's one example, and I'll speak slow and easy, Andy, so you could hear the numbers correct. Client of mine purchased a self-storage facility in 2017 for $859,000. If he stayed on the straight line depreciation, he'd get an income tax write-off every year of $8,157, standardized. And that's from doing that simple math equation from before. So instead of that $8,000 straight line depreciation write-off, what we did, we cost segregated his facility. We got him a $45,000 write-off. So that's 5 years of depreciation rolled into one, and we're giving that to someone up front. It's kind of cheesy, but it's almost like J.G. Wentworth when people say it's my money and I want it now. Well, it's the same with your depreciation. My team and I were not creating any more for you. We just have what the numbers we have to work with, but what we're doing is front loading it for you. So if you have a use for this tax savings, you could buy more property or pay down debt or put towards your principal, etc. It's not just for purchases. So this same client significantly invested into the same property, $3.6 million. And we netted him a tax savings here of $569,000, okay? We'll do one more here. 2008 purchase. I like to point this out too, because people think cost segregation is just for new properties. It's not. We could go back up to 30 years. Look at any deductions missed, bring those forward for you. Here, this dental office example, $1 million purchase, $450,000 into improvements. It's a $1.45 million total. His normal depreciation would be $13,700. We got a $73,969 income tax savings. So here's a great point to put out here. Let's say April comes around, or in this case, July 15th, which is the true personal tax deadline. So the timing, again, Mike, couldn't be better. Let's say I'm this dentist and I don't owe $73,000 in income tax. Well, that's okay. Let's say I owe $30,000. Well, now I owe nothing because of cost segregation, and we carry forward the $43,000 for future years, okay? That's cost seg 101. So you take the accumulated depreciation or the depreciation expense that I create, you'd put it towards your current income tax liability. It's going to significantly reduce it or eliminate it, and you carry the rest forward. And that's how cost seg has always worked until now. Now you have the CARES Act. And now Michael is totally right. For 2019, this is only available until September 15th. Michael, you didn't know this, but they did increase it now. You can do it in 2020 as well. So
Oh, wow. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so now it's going to go towards until September 2021. But for all intents and purposes, for those of you who may have not filed in 2019 taxes, this is still available. Andy, I might lose you here because I'm going over an example where I'm highlighting some things, but.
I didn't say I was dumb. I said I wasn't the most intelligent in the room.
All right, I quit harping on you. I'm sorry, but here, let's just say again, same situation. I buy a property from Jerry Brown or Michael Hobbs, and since I'm a sophisticated real estate investor, I say, well, let's cost segregate the building, or at least have an analysis done for free, which is what I do, to see how the benefit could work out for me. So let's say I purchased the building in 2019 and I get a cost seg analysis done. The cost seg guy saying, hey, Mr. Jones, I could free up $425,000 in write-offs for you. So now, instead of taking the write-off, timesing it by your tax rate and putting it against your income tax, you could take this write-off. So $425,000 write-off, carry it back up to 5 years, put it against any previously paid income tax year, and generate a refund. So in this example, if I bought a building in 19 and it generated a $425,000 depreciation expense, which is a fancy term for write-off, which is a fancy term for a loss. So it created a massive loss. I could go back to previous years of income. So if you put 425 against this 75, that eats it up. And in that year, in this example, John Smith paid 14 grand in tax. So he would get a refund for that year. However, there's still hundreds of thousands of dollars of loss that have not been eaten up. So you carry it forward to the next year. So if we go back from 19 to 14, we trigger a $14,000 refund. In 2015, in this example, John Smith earned $150,000. The 425 still wipes that income out. And on $150,000, that would trigger a $35,000 refund. And then you move up to 2016, there's still $200,000 left of depreciation expense. So you'd put it against this. So 400,000 of income would become 200,000. That's half of the income, which would be half of the taxes paid, and it would trigger a $66,000 refund. So in this example, which is actually a true example, we just didn't want to use the client's name. He received a total refund of $115,677 cash in his pocket. And that is not considered income to the government since he was previously paid. So he is free to do whatever he'd like to do with that. And that's the CARES Act effect on cost segregation. So if instead of a guy saying, well, I'm at a loss, I don't need any more write-offs. Well, guess what, Mr. Jones? That's great news. Now you can take the losses and carry them backwards. So this was always just a roll forward strategy up until about 3 months ago. So it's really exciting times for those of you who own property.
So Kevin, I think what was interesting about this is in the CARES Act, property owners didn't get any real opportunities. And this is one of those
Yes.
where if you did not have a property you've owned for, say, a long period of time, let's say 10 years or less, maybe longer, but let's just use 10 years as an example, that there's an opportunity through accelerated depreciation, otherwise known as cost segregation,
Right.
as approved by the government, to receive refunds for previous taxes paid. Or you can hold it against your current or future income, but the biggest opportunity is to get literally refunds right now. And maybe if you could touch on for maybe some of your clients with single family portfolios, or, I think that's an interesting piece because some of the properties may not be worth as much, but
Sure.
pooled together kind of gives some sense of how best to consider, is this a good fit or good opportunity?
Yeah, I wrapped up, and I wish I put it into this presentation, and I will now because this is geared towards mostly commercial. But I wrapped up about 2 weeks ago a 20 single-family home portfolio. The average price of the home was $150,000, and that's it. We generated over $1 million write-off. This client's going to take it and put it towards his current income tax liability, but if he wanted to, he could carry that $1 million backwards and triggered a pretty decent refund. So instead, he carried it forward. We got him a $300,000 income tax reduction. And I'm going to throw in a single family home example in there, but that's a recent one finished that worked out very well, very well. And if anyone's wondering how do these analysis work or anything like that, it's a very simple estimate form. It's not like working with the life insurance guy where they say, hey, let me look at 2 years of your taxes and all this stuff. This is really 6 data points that we'd like to know. So let's take Mike Hobbs' example. Property type, we'll say single family. Then my firm wants to know the location. And we work nationwide, so I've completed studies almost personally in all 50 states. Not quite there, but my firm definitely has. Let's just for ease of use, it's Chicago, Illinois. We'll call it KJC LLC. And I bought the building for $200,000 on August 2016. And I put $200,000 into it. And that was for the roof and the HVAC system, et cetera. And with that, we could work up a full 8-page engineering grade analysis, completely free. Which would show you the net benefit and the fee associated with the work for my firm to do. I'm going to hop right into this. Unless there's any questions, this might answer a couple questions, these next 2 slides. A big common misconception is that cost segregation. Yes,
I have a question.
please.
How much does this trigger an IRS audit? I understand it's a tricky question.
Yeah, that's. Is this Andy?
Yes,
That's Andy.
that's Andy.
He's not reading the
Andy.
slide, but that's exactly what you're going to say next.
This
Kevin.
is Andy. It's too funny. I just pulled up the slide. I don't want to trigger an audit. That's the title of this. But so I'll go into it. So the nice thing about cost segregation is that it's called a green light strategy. So this has been around since 1997. The IRS prefers this method of depreciation, and that's it all in their audit technique guides, which we use heavily in our marketing. However, if a client gets audited for some other reason, my firm will send one of our engineers anywhere in all the US, no cost to the client to defend our study. That has happened 12 times in the past 20 years. However, we've completed 27,000 of these. So if you do that math, it's extremely favorable. And we've always received favorable results, meaning the client would never even get a slap on the hand. Just more so, they want to know, where'd you get these numbers from? So we send our guys out to go defend these studies. So it's a green light strategy. All this is it's an accounting method change. So it's not even an election. It's accepted 100% of the time. There's no need to do anything else. My firm files one form that simply states to the IRS, Kevin Cawley switching from straight line to the accelerated method, and here's the case to support it, or the cost seg study to support the numbers. I know you can't see any, but I like this. I put up a page for the AICPA. That's a National Association for CPAs. Highly recommending this. They recommend cost seg studies should be at least looked into whenever a purchase price plus improvements are equal or exceed $750,000. Again, my firm will go as low as $200,000. That's purchase price plus improvements. So for those of you who are going, hey, wait, he just said he did a single family portfolio where the guy's purchase price were $150,000. They would put $100,000 into each property as well. So that's it. There's one more slide. Who are we? My firm has been involved in this since day one. Our CEO, Jim Shreve, was actually commissioned to help develop the protocols and processes involved in cost segregation today. So he's known industry-wide as the godfather, so to speak. My firm has done more than the next biggest 3 firms combined. So we've done 27,000 of these. That's massive. This is not a commodity. So who you work with, especially when dealing with tax and the federal government, matters big time. So it's good to work with a firm that's known by the IRS. And the last thing is 20 years, what we do is engineering-based cost segregation studies. There's actually 5 types of accelerated depreciation. Engineering-based cost segregation is by far the most recommended by the IRS, simply because there's a lot of data we gather to make sure these numbers are as close to exact as you can get. There's always some wiggle room in tax, but we're as close as you can get, guaranteed.
So Kevin, why would someone not do cost segregation?
Awesome question. Very good question. So cost segregation is a way to accelerate depreciation. Again, it's money you'd get if you held a building the whole life of it, meaning 39 years. The truth of it, and we all know this, how many people buy a property and own it for 39 years? Not many. So what we're doing is leveling the playing field. We know you get this benefit of X, whatever the purchase price divided by 39 years is. But we also know you're not going to hold 39 years. What we do recommend is you hold at least 5 years after you get a cost segregation study done. Because within all real estate, there's recapture when you sell an asset and you make some money on it. So what we do is we put parts and pieces components into 5, 7, and 15-year categories. The 5-year is by far the biggest part of that benefit. So if you hold a property 5 years, the argument, and then sell it, the argument's made on our end that there shouldn't be much recapture on all the 5-year parts and pieces, because on paper, this new owner has got to replace them all. They're useless. Again, on paper, you know, some of the 5-year items I showed you guys, like interior doors, last much longer than 5 years, but on paper, they don't. So that's the argument made, and that's why we recommend 5-year hold period after you do cost seg. Doesn't mean you have to buy a building today and then hold 5 years. You could have already owned the building 10 years, but then once you do a cost seg, we recommend you hold it another 5.
Thanks, Kevin. Margie, you had a question? Margie? Go ahead, Andy.
No,
So
I was just saying that I owned a building for 39 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh yeah, there you go. So yeah, I'm not saying it's out of the question. I've ran into several prospects as well, but it's very uncommon in this.
But Kevin, real quick, one thing I learned in a
Sure.
previous conversation is if you did own a building for 39 years, at some point you're going to step in and you're going to remodel that building. You're significantly going to upgrade it. Anytime you have a significant spend on your building, you can apply these accelerated depreciation benefits to get that tax saving much sooner than waiting another 39 years.
Yeah. You know what? That's a great point, Mike. Is just like Mike said, imagine that if you owned whether residential or commercial for that long, you've had to replace the roof at some point, you know, and roofs are big expenditures, and that might bring you up to the point where we could work with you again. But very good point, which I should address in here. I'm going to make a note of that.
Yeah, you should. Andy, what was your question?
Yeah, you kind of answered it, but if you buy properties for taxes, which I do a fair amount, and your acquisition costs are mainly legal and taxes, there is no real acquisition cost, then you can use this for the actual improvements you put into the building, but you can't use the acquisition as a number that would help you, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you get to our minimum threshold, we could work with you. One thing I didn't touch on either is a large commercial client of mine is Pandora jewelry stores. So they're in malls mostly, but they don't own that sliver of real estate in the mall. They just pay a lease. Well, this company puts $350,000 into each store and leasehold improvements, so we get to cost seg those improvements for them.
Oh.
So yeah, you don't have to own, and I'm glad you brought that up, Andy.
Okay.
What other questions do people have about application or how this could be an opportunity for them?
So Kevin, I understand you have a interesting relationship with the Chicago Firehouse.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's so funny. So before everyone joined the call, I was mentioning, I overheard that the meetings were held at the Chicago Firehouse. So I was like thinking in my head, how cool is that? I just cost segregated the Chicago Firehouse less than a year ago. So I know Matt O'Malley and Bill Saporis, who owned the property at the time, very well. I had to go there and do the site visit. What a gorgeous place. Now it is one of my favorite places too. I just thought that was funny I wanted to really bring it up to bring this full circle. So they use this as well.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me there.
Oh, sure, of course. Now, Kevin Nasutsa, you're very popular in the room. If you can provide us any type of contact information for our SBA members, that would be most helpful.
Sure.
If you just feel free to post it in the chat, or you can give it to me and we can email it out. Oh, look how
Well,
look how cover is that.
well, but I'll make sure, Cleo, I'll send this to you. There's nothing proprietary here. So
Okay, all right.
you can send this out.
Very clever. It's not like we queue you up for each topic here, you know.
Yeah,
That's
no, it
pretty
is.
funny.
That's funny. I couldn't believe how well it worked out with Andy there with the audit.
He's a mind reader.
Yes, he is. Very much so.
But I wanted to keep it short and sweet. Honestly, this is highly technical service to employ. A full study takes 4 to 6 weeks to finish. The concept itself is easy to understand, but to actually do it, we're bringing in a lot of guys with the alphabets at the end of their names. You know, so it's an engineered tax service, and engineers got to do it.
Excellent. Kevin, you know, the other thing I think, and granted, you talk to a lot more commercial property owners because the dollars are a lot bigger. I think one of the interesting things around cost segregation or the engineered tax studies is that everyone has to file a tax return. Most of the accountants that people work with do not do engineered tax studies, probably have never mentioned it to many of our Southside Builder Association members. And therefore, it can be just as simple as a question saying, hey, are you familiar with cost segregation? And then they could, and I appreciate Cleo sending it out to everyone, they can just simply fill out that one page with those 6 data points on it, send it over to you, and you can do a quick analysis and say, hey, it might make some sense for you to look at this. You might receive an income tax return in the next 4 to 6 weeks of, you know, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 or more.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I found really helpful, given all the buildings I've owned over the years, is it's a different story when you show up and you literally have a 7-figure tax shelter based on all the depreciation that's accumulated. So it's a fantastic way to keep more of the hard-earned money that we work so hard to earn.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. And you know what, Mike? I'll attach the estimate form as its own attachment. So I'll
It's a good idea.
I'll do the PowerPoint, maybe a flyer, and then this will be its own separate.
That'd be great. Any additional questions for Kevin?
And I always bring this up if there's not. Usually what happens is we end something like this and someone's going to go, shoot, I wish I asked them this. So we'll make sure you have my contact info. Call, text. I'm an easy guy to get a hold of. It is tax season, so the 15th is a deadline. I have a lot of studies to wrap up for clients, but I'll always get back to whoever reaches out.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Kevin,
Yeah.
amazing information. Nasutsa, thank you very much for being with us today.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and share your contact information with individuals in the room once we have that. And if there's anything else you'd like us to pass on to our members, please let us know. Be happy to make the connection there. So thank you all very much for joining us with today. Next week, we have Mr. Bill Eager. He is the Vice President for the Real Estate Development in the Midwest region for the National Nonprofit Preservation of Affordable Housing. So we're going to have a really great discussion on that next week. That's it for today. Everyone have a wonderful holiday. Jerry, thank you so much for bringing Nasutsa in. Michael, thank you very much for bringing Kevin in today.
You're
All
welcome.
right. Okay. Have a good week, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you
Bye.
very much. Thank you.